Welcome to Dadtrepreneur, the podcast tailor-made for the modern man balancing personal development, business, and family. This is Dadtrepreneur.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Dadtrepreneur podcast, where we talk about all things man, even the stuff men don't want to talk about. I'm your co-host, Billy G.
What's up, guys? I'm Jared.
And today's topic is actually inspired from one of Samantha's friends. So I was talking to her, and she wrote me a message saying a good topic maybe for you guys would be about when to let people go in your life. And I started thinking about it, and there are so many ways that we could talk about that. I mean, we could talk about in business, in relationships, your family, in life, in death. There are endless possibilities, I feel like.
It's also, I feel like it's really dependent on what you want to do with your life, because most times the reason why you should cut people out is because they're holding you back from ultimately where you want to be in your life, you know? So it's really dependent on that. But no matter what, I would say there's certain people that, whether they're holding you back in your eyes or not, it's just like almost like a toxic relationship where they just breed negativity. And, it's one of those things where you hang out with people often, you almost start to adapt to how they behave.
That's absolutely true.
You'll pick up their lingo, how they talk. So it's inevitable that you're going to pick up on that negativity. You know?
That's absolutely true. And you know what? Like, I don't know about like your parents, but like my parents told me that like really early on in life. They were like, the old saying, like, look at your friends and I'll show you your future, you know? And I don't know, I didn't really understand that until I got older. And like when I look back on my childhood and teenage years, like, yeah, man, like I definitely chose a wrong crowd. And I would say it absolutely influenced my behavior. And as an immature kid, you don't have the foresight to like see that kind of thing and like watch it happening around you and like watching how it impacts your decisions. But I feel like as I've become an adult, I've become much more cognizant of things like that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, right? It's like one thing that I would say to do is to take a step back, look at yourself also, like you have to look at what your behaviors are because look, if you're going out every weekend and you're going to bars and you're partying, you're going clubbing, you're most likely going to end up in a crowd that they're not really benefiting you. You know what I mean? Because they're the same type of people. And it's not to say that you can't go to a bar or can't go to a club ever. But if your weekend is just every single time solely based on partying, you're going to end up in that type of crowd.
Yeah, and I think it boils down to like your like life motivations. Yeah. If your life motivation is going out and partying, then like, yeah, man, that's a problem. If your life motivation is to succeed and get ahead and, you every once in a while go out with your friends, I think that's a totally different situation. For sure. And like, so thinking about this topic, it's like, well, I'm sure, and I know you've had this experience in the business setting.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, what did that look like for you? What were the warning signs? What did you miss?
I missed a lot of them.
Yeah.
I missed a lot of them. And then, look, in my situation, I wasn't the one to cut ties, to be honest with you. Yeah. And I probably should have, or...
Do you find that difficult?
Absolutely, yeah.
I do, too.
Absolutely. I could even take it to a employee level, not a partnership level, right? There's certain employees that are just not a good fit for you, and it's hard to let go of them sometimes. I've always been that way. I'm not good at firing people.
Yeah, I'm not good at being the bad guy, quote unquote. Where it's like I feel like I try to make things work, and then even in the face of facts that it's not working, I'll still kind of be like, well, maybe there's something
I'll move
else
them into another position. I've done it. I'm dead serious. Hey, sales isn't working for you. Let's try research. And it's look, it's good and bad because sometimes they deserve a second chance. And look, I've had a situation where a good friend of mine, I consider him a good friend now. We shifted him into other positions, and then he came back to sales and did way better. So. You have that too, and that could have never been the case if I just fired him right away.
That's true.
So it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, but I've never been good at it, and it's something that I probably need to work on.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is too is like I never want people to be mad at me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like that's if I'm being honest. Like, I don't know. I've never like fared well with like people having grudges against me because I don't know, and I'm sure it's the same for you, but like I try to carry myself in a way where, I'm well liked and well respected. And it's like when you start, I think, enforcing boundaries sometimes, it blurs those lines a little bit because, like, oh, well, he's just a
Yeah, but ultimately those look, and I'm the same way.
Yeah.
So I'm preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
But ultimately those people are probably not a good fit for you.
I know.
You know what I mean? So
No,
it's
and
like,
I know that.
and same here.
Yeah,
and
I know that.
And again, as usual, we learn stuff on this podcast as we talk
Yeah.
too. It's like
Yeah.
you almost step back and you're like, oh damn, I need to.
Well, sometimes
tighten
too, like we realize like how similar we are,
Yeah.
you know, and like I hope the viewers feel the same way where they go, oh wow, you know, I can be that way too, because this is not stuff that like people openly talk about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not stuff that like they want to admit even.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that kind of happens in your life, and then you just kind of go along for the ride. You
Yeah.
don't even take a second to really look at it. Because, you know, if you look at it, then you have to address it. You know,
You have to make some changes.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it too, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it ultimately is what you said. You don't want to be looked at as the bad guy. Everybody, look, it's human nature for the most part to want to be liked. There's some people that don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not that person. You're
Look,
not
we're
that
social
person.
creatures, man.
Yeah.
We're made to be with other people.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that judgment, especially, look, judgment behind closed doors is one thing, but when it gets back to your ears, it's like, well, damn, they're talking about me that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
damn,
that
they
hurts
really
your
feel like
feelings.
that? Yeah, of course.
So you could act like you don't care, but you know ultimately you do care. So the point I was making is like take a step back, evaluate yourself, evaluate, like you said, where you want to be in life.
Mm-hmm.
And make a list of who you do hang around with. And it sounds stupid, but pros and cons. Like, are they bringing more positive than negative into your relationship? And then just make a decision. You know, again, if they're aiming down, you're ultimately going to go down. If they're aiming up, great. You have the right friend.
Right.
But more times than not, if you really dissect your friendships, they're not aiming up as you want to aim up in life, you know?
Yeah, and that's in a friendship setting. So like, you know, in a friendship setting, like there's no love involved, there's no money involved. It's just simply you enjoy each other's company,
Mm-hmm.
you guys have mutual interests. I think like that is probably the easiest of the relationships to sever because nothing's really lost other than, you know, maybe some time and a person that you thought you valued, but like there's no money involved, there's no love involved, right? So I feel at least that out of all of the categories, that could probably be the easiest one to let go, especially in the face of a friend who maybe is consistently screwing you over, maybe is consistently being a problem in your life. It's kind of easier to just shut that door.
Yeah, because they're not a friend if they're doing that.
Right, exactly. I think the harder stuff is relationships, like intimate relationships, business where money is involved. You know, like, am I going to lose money if I make this decision? You know, and with love, it's like, man, love's the most complicated one, I think. Do you get rid of this person that you love, even though in the back of your mind, you know that they're probably not what's best for you?
Good fit.
Yeah.
So look, this is just my opinion, but I think that in every case you just mentioned, you have to have a conversation first,
Yes.
right? Because especially in relationships,
Yeah.
most times there's a lot of divorces that happen with one side or the other not knowing why they got divorced, like the real reasons, all of them,
Right.
why they got divorced. And it's like how is that even a thing? How do you go through divorce with someone that you love and care about and been with for a long time? And when you ask them, if you had them in separate rooms and you ask both of them why they got divorced, I guarantee you get two different answers.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that people put walls up, especially I think as we get older. You know, I think maybe when we were 16, 18, 21, you don't have a ton of real relationship experience. Like you have some, of course. You have like your high school sweetheart and all that stuff. But like, I think as you get into your later 20s and your 30s, you've experienced like good and bad relationships. And I think the bad ones can mess you up. You know, you immediately put walls up and it's hard for the next partner to break that barrier. And, you know, you may not want to really let them know what's going on because that means you're being vulnerable. And if you're being vulnerable, then you're susceptible to being hurt. So sometimes I think maybe people think it's easier to just sever, not even explore that place in themselves, and just move on to the next person in hopes that it works out.
Do you think that's just a ongoing cycle, or like you're going to keep going through the same cycle?
Oh,
because
without a doubt.
right?
Yeah.
Inevitably.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Unless you find someone that's the same exact type of person. But either way, that's
even
most likely
then,
not
like
gonna
you
work
take
out.
you everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. That's something people don't really realize is you take you everywhere. So all your bad habits, all the secrets, all that stuff will just follow you to the next one. Everybody loves to do this and point the finger at that person because it's way easier than to look within and do the work within yourself. to fix who you are. And I think that becomes a major problem when it comes to the relationship setting, the love setting.
Yeah. And again, I think that a conversation is the easiest way to understand whether or not that person is a good fit or not.
Right.
And if you're not having a conversation and you're just staying in it, then you're part of the problem too.
Yeah.
Right?
No, definitely.
So I feel like you have to do it. You know, it's a hard thing to do. It is because, again, a lot of people don't like to be judged or be confrontational in general. And it's most likely going to end in confrontation because it's inevitable for the other person to feel attacked if you're not delivering it the proper way. Right.
Yeah.
And again, it could be delivered 100 different ways. You could do it in a long, drawn out text message, which is probably not wise.
No, it's the worst,
right?
I think. Yeah.
Probably not wise.
That's the worst.
You know, face to face is always going to be better, but it's about the delivery, right? If that person feels attacked,
Oh, it's done.
they're going to become
Oh,
defensive.
it's done.
Even
Yeah.
if they know they're wrong. I've been in that position.
Same.
I've been in that position.
I've been
you
on
know?
both sides.
Same.
You know, where like maybe, you know, I didn't like pose the question the right way,
Yeah.
or like I came from a place of anger or a place of frustration. I wasn't really angry at that person.
Yeah.
But I was kind of angry at the situation,
yeah.
you know? And then boom, that person's walls are up. Boom, you know, we're fighting. And it's like, man, how did we even get here? You know, like my intention was just to maybe, or, you know, bring up a topic that kind of bothered me.
Yeah.
And now we're in a worse spot than we were before I even said anything.
And when you have time to like dissect it, you're like, well, I probably shouldn't have said that
Yeah.
in that
In
way.
that way. Yeah. Or like gone about it in that way. Like it's a fine line to walk, especially if you're dealing with somebody who maybe knows they're in the wrong,
Yeah.
or if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't feel that they're wrong at all. You know, that's, I think, is the more complicated
scarier.
one. Yes, because that person feels justified
Yep.
in their position. You feel justified in yours. And it's like, well, what do? We're not going to agree here, clearly.
If you do have the conversation and you deliver it the right way, and then it keeps happening, then you have an issue, you
Right.
know, right? So that's when you most likely are going to have to cut ties eventually. It's just inevitable. You
Yeah.
could only bury it so much
Yes.
if it's something that's genuinely like bothering you
Yeah.
to your core.
Yeah.
And whether that's, again, business, a relationship,
Anything.
a friendship,
Yeah.
anything, it's just
Because
not
it'll
not gonna work.
nag.
It'll eat at you.
It'll nag. You know, like there'll be periods of good and then boom, nag. Boom, nag. And like, I don't know about you, but I can put up with a decent amount. You know, I can justify in my mind, well, you know, this one thing is not like a huge deal, right? Like in the grand scheme of things, it's not. But to you, it is. And especially if you've expressed like how you feel about it, and then it still continues to happen.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's almost like a disrespect.
Yeah.
You know,
Slap
I
in the
mean,
face.
that's how I usually feel. I'm usually like, well, you know, I've expressed like this is a problem, and you still continue to do it in the face of knowing my opinion.
Yeah.
So what does that tell me? What's that supposed to tell me? That tells me is that you don't care, or that you're not willing to change.
Yeah.
So then now what we do, you know, it's a tough spot.
That's the question, right? And I feel like that's what we need to ultimately figure out. And look, as usual, everyone's situation is different, so it doesn't
course.
apply to everyone.
Yeah,
but
of course.
So let's start with family. Let's say it's a family member, right? It's a
Yeah.
family
That's
member.
another tough one, man.
Right. So
Yeah.
so let's start there. Let's say
Yeah.
that it's a family member that's just toxic. You know, they're not looking out for your best interest. They don't believe in you, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
How do you sever those ties? You know, and I it sounds horrible to say, but it's still a necessity.
It is. And like, you know, the old adage, like you can't pick your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you got them for life, no matter what. And I think it really, and I know people who have like cut their parents off, parents who cut kids off. Like that's really, really tough, man. You know, like, look, I went through some stuff with my parents, you know, and like, you know, they cut me off, and like they, you know, I think I went like 6 months one time without talking to my mom, and like that's weird, you know, like for as decently close as a family that we are, like that was strange. And, you know, for me, it was the best thing they could have ever done. It really was. So I'm sure they didn't come to that decision lightly. You know,
Of course
it
not.
was time after time of me spitting in
Yeah.
their face, you know, before they were finally like, okay, you know, this is literally the last house in
Yeah.
the block,
Yeah.
you know, but like it sucks because with family, usually that's what happens. It's the last house on the block.
Mm-hmm.
It's you've exhausted all efforts, you've done everything you can, and now here we are. Like, do I continue to let you just walk all over me, or do I just say, when you figure your shit out, come back?
Yeah.
With family, I think that's how it should go. It's like it's never a permanent tie, you know. And that's outside of abuse, outside of sexual, you know, outside of horrendous things. If it's simply just a disagreement on character, then it's really, I think, boils down to like, okay, well, if you decide to change, I'm here. And if you don't decide to change, well, then I'm not here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, as you're talking, I'm like thinking like, if I was put in that situation, what would I do? And it's so difficult.
Oh, it's
so
very difficult.
But sometimes it happens, you know, like I've absolutely had disagreements with every one of my immediate family members. And typically we find each other in a relatively short period. We come back to each other and we're good.
Yeah.
But like you said, if it's something horrendous, that's different. And it's going to take longer. You know?
Maybe never.
There's exactly.
Yeah. Maybe never.
Oh, well, if it's something like super,
really
like
bad,
what
like
you
a
said,
crime. Yeah. That's different.
That's different for sure. And it's going to take you a long time to, if ever, to get back to that. But there's people that go 10 years without talking to each other that are blood.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes it's best for at least one of the people in that situation. It's better that way. You know, like you said, your parents cut you off and that was the best decision that they made for you.
Yeah, no, it was.
Right. And,
it really was.
I know you had friends cut you off.
Oh,
Josh being one of them. For how long? How long was it that you didn't?
Oh, dude, I didn't talk to Josh for like
years, right?
4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
It's a long freaking time, especially for someone like you met when you were 5 years old.
Yeah.
You know, it's a while.
So that's different. Like, you know, you said earlier in friendship, there isn't, but there is love. You know what I mean? It's a different type of love.
Yeah, of course.
But you know, I'm sure that stung for a while.
Oh, it did.
Not where you were in it at first because you were lost for a little bit.
Oh,
right?
no, that's for more than just a little bit, for a lot of it.
Yeah.
You know, I was really
in the beginning. You don't really see it in that light, and then you have time to digest and take it in, and then you're like, okay, I'm the problem in this situation.
Yes. And as somebody who's been on that side, I know that what went through my mind was like, how dare he do that?
Of course, at first.
You know, how dare my parents do that? Like, don't they know that I'm so important in their lives? And like, I took it so personal against my character, you know, and against like me as an individual, but really what they weren't liking were my decisions.
Yeah.
They weren't liking the person that I was becoming, not who I actually was. And like, you know, me now as a sober-minded, clear-thinking person, they absolutely did the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, like I would do it to me too. But in that moment, especially when I felt justified in my position, just like we talked about earlier, like I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm not hurting anybody but me, like why? I was very defensive of it. I was very angry, resentful. And I remember like back then I would see like you guys going out like on social media and stuff, and I'd be like, man, you know, screw those guys, man. Like how dare they not like include me? And like I felt so attacked.
Take it personal.
Of course. And like, again, like now that time has passed and, you know, I'm obviously back in the picture with all of you guys and my life is extremely different. My thinking is extremely different. I mean, I would have done it to me in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
You know, I totally get it. But that was a tough thing for him to do.
I was going to say, who do you think it's harder for?
Oh, for him, for sure.
Yeah.
For him. I mean, I was busy numbing myself anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So, yeah, he was fully present making sober, conscious decisions.
Correct.
Whereas I was kind of like, screw you. You know?
And look, Josh in that situation, more than anything, was protecting his family more than himself.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
That's how Josh has always been.
No.
Is great dad, you know, always looking out for what's best for his family. So I don't even think it was him being selfish. I think it was him looking out for his loved ones.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
That's a tough situation, dude. So I don't know. I think that all around, no matter what, if you have to cut ties with people, if they're in your life on a regular basis, it's going to be a tough decision to make. Yeah. It really is. But it's absolutely necessary. It's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, if as I'm saying this or as we're talking, you're thinking of people. Those are the people that you need to cut ties with. That's the reality, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's true.
If we're talking and you're thinking, you're running through certain people in your mind, and you're like, "Damn, you got to cut ties."
Wow,
and that's the truth. And it's tough to even think about. It really is. But ultimately, it's going to work out in the long run. It's going to be better for most likely both of you, and you might find each other in the future. You know, you might not.
You might not.
You might not. You might go on two completely different paths.
Yeah, and let's talk about it. Probably the hardest of all is death. You have someone very close to you pass away, and you know they are forcibly removed from your life. There's nothing you can do about it, right? But your brain still holds on to them. Your brain still holds on to all the memories, all of the moments that you had together, things that are still here that remind you of them. That is a tough one. So when do you let that go? You know, how long do you brood with that? Because that's a situation you have no control over whatsoever. Like all you can really do is accept the situation for what it is. But even through acceptance, there's still that piece of like, dang, man, like I miss them,
Yeah.
you know? So like, I think that's easily the most difficult.
And I don't think anyone has an answer for that.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's good and bad ways to hang on to people.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You hang on to the good, you let go of the bad. And,
Right.
and I feel like that's the only answer. I don't know, because I haven't had anyone like super close to me ripped out of my life, and knock on wood, you know, it's inevitable that it's going to happen.
Of
but
course.
that's how I feel that I would address it.
Yeah.
And nobody can tell you how you should address it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like anything else, like we always say, no, it's not one size fits all, man.
No, it's not. But you know, you see so many different reactions to it.
Of course.
You know, you see people who, for years, you know, it gets to a point where it's disrupting their life. I think that's where the problem lies, right? I think it's okay and normal to have your feelings.
Yes.
And to feel everything and cry when you need to and be happy when you need to and remember them when you need to. But I think it's when that starts to interfere with your daily life, like you're not showering, you're not eating, you're not going to work, you're not being a productive human being, and people go to that place.
Absolutely.
You know, they absolutely do, and they stay there for a very long time. I think that's where the holding on becomes a problem, and that's where they really kind of need to let go. You know, and I think letting go in death is so different than letting go in life, right? Because there's two different motivations for it. I think letting go in life is, hey, you're bringing my world down, you know, and I kind of like just need you to go away,
Yeah.
you know, so I can better myself. Whereas with death, someone leaves and you feel like a piece of you is missing, you know, instead of over here, it's like subtraction, you know what I mean? You're just getting rid of them. And then over here, it's like, man, I feel like there's a piece of my heart that's gone and I don't know how to replace it. You know, I don't know what to do to add it back.
Yeah.
And I think it's just such a different response, but they're equally as important to let go.
Yeah.
It's just a harder situation when it wasn't your choice.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Also, is like there's also different ways to lose people, right?
Yeah.
You have people that you know are, I hate to say it, but on their deathbed, and you almost have some time at least, and it's never
No, it's never easy.
exactly, like no matter how much
But
time
at
you
least
have,
I think in that situation, you're like, okay, this is
you can
happening.
prepare yourself.
Yeah, I can say what I want to say.
Yes.
You know, get all that off your chest. And when somebody is just taken, it's like, man, there's so much I wish I would have said.
Yeah.
What was our last conversation about? And like, there's so much guilt, remorse, and shame that comes with the moments or the days or the weeks leading up to that. What was the last argument we had?
Yep.
You know, like, yeah, there's just so much. And like that stuff can bring you to the ground really, really quick. I think like that's the stuff, at least for me, that I got to let go, you know?
For sure. And again, look, you have your motivations as to why you need to pull yourself out of that.
Yeah, of
and,
course.
and why you did what you did and you are where you are. Other people don't have that. So it's a little harder, right? If you don't have someone that you have to take care of and anybody else in your life, you're kind of just alone all the time. And especially now that you lost maybe that one person that you were always with, it's going to be harder for you to pull out of it. You know,
Yeah.
it's just a fact.
Yeah.
But like you said, you have to eventually, especially if you're not being productive and you're not doing the things that you once did to make yourself happy, you're going to be in trouble, you know?
Yeah.
So you have to figure it out, and easier said than done, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's the answer. Once you start putting yourself in a situation where you're not doing the things that you once did to make you happy or doing anything productive, like you said, then
Yeah.
you have to, or else you're stuck.
You're at that point. Yeah, exactly. And now you have a person who's not even here who is wearing your life down.
Yep.
You know, and it's really all because of you. It's all because of the choices that you're making to hold on to all of those things. You know, I think at the end of the day, like this whole topic is almost not even really about the other person. It's really about you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
It's really about like your choices. What are you willing to put up with? What are you not willing to put up with? And are you willing to set boundaries? And I think a lot of people have a hard time with the boundary part.
Agreed. And look, one thing I'll say is you can't save a person that's drowning until they calm down, right? If you think about it,
Yeah.
if someone is flailing in the water and panicking and throwing their arms and kicking and stuff like that, if you grab onto them or they clench onto you,
Yeah.
you could be in big trouble. And they teach you that. Like,
Of course.
you have to get someone to calm down before you could try to save them from drowning.
Yeah.
And you could make the attempt to stop them from drowning and have conversations with them. Obviously, this is a metaphor.
Yeah.
And it might not work. You made your attempt. You had your conversation. You told them how you feel, how it affects you, how you don't like it, the pros, the cons, whatever. And they want to stay on that path. Then again, it's time for you to cut those ties and move on. And you're 100% correct. It comes down to sometimes you got to be selfish, and you just have to make the decision.
Yeah.
And rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
You know?
Ripping the Band-Aid off. That's really it. That's really it.
Tough thing to do.
That's way easier said than done.
I feel like I've done it without doing it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I have friends that
And it's easier when it's done for you.
Exactly.
You know, like when the other person's finally willing to do it, or
Yeah.
like a situation comes up where it has to happen, you know, then it's kind of like, oh man, you got off easy.
or you both just stop reaching out to each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. So again, as usual, I don't have the answer. You know, that's why we have these conversations.
Yeah, we don't always have answers. In fact, we don't have any answers. That's why we do this.
I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
I'm not good at cutting ties. So,
well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I think this was a good topic. Shout out to Alexia. Thank you for this one. We love topics that viewers give us because it opens our minds, right? Like it gives us topics like I would have never even thought about this one.
Yeah.
And yet it's a really important one for a lot of people. So please comment down below if you have other topics that you would like us to discuss, or reach out privately. You know, my Instagram is BillyG_fit.
Jared Free. Almost forgot it.
Yep. Same. And look, great episode. Great episode.
We don't miss.
So, you know, make sure that you guys are, you know, liking, commenting, subscribing, share it with your friends and family. You know, help us out in the algorithm. Even if you just say great podcast at the bottom, helps us tremendously.
And cut those people off that aren't adding value to your lives.
All right, guys. Peace out. Bye.
Later.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Dadtrepreneur. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for future episodes. Stay connected with us on Instagram @Dadtrepreneur Podcast. See you next time.